So I went up to Newcastle at the beginning of March to speak to Dr. Jansen and the team up there about um, my ongoing care. As many of you know, I get arrhythmia and like atrial fibrillation a lot. It's part of having an older style Fontan circuit. My Fontan will be 30 years old this year, and I'm lucky that it's lasted as well as it has for as long as it has. So basically what we need to now do is work out what's the next stage of the care that I'll receive. So contrary to popular belief, when you have surgery as a child, you aren't cured. It doesn't cure you, it's only ever a temporary treatment. So it's not like a cancer or something that once it's out of your body or once you've had the surgery, you can then continue to be free of it. It's an ongoing condition. It will be with me my entire life, and so we need an entire life care plan. So probably one of the reasons why that's not already in place is that we're sort of the earliest, or we're the generation now who have had these kind of surgeries when we've been young, who are now living to 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I'm not sure who the oldest person with a Fontan circuit is, but I'm pretty sure it's not me. Well, I know it's definitely not me. So that's a brilliant problem for people to have. However, when you're actually living with it, it's not the greatest problem. So what they've found is in the old style Fontans is that you get something called atrial fibrillation, which I talk about AF and palpitations, and that basically means that my heart will just kind of kick out of beat and carry on out of beat, which I've been through in other videos, but just in case this is the first one that you're watching, that's what happens. So basically we need a long-term plan in order to manage that, because the more it happens, the more dangerous it is, and obviously it's not something that you want to be constantly having. The atrium in the heart isn't a pumping chamber, and the old style Fontan changed that into a pumping chamber, so it's basically doing a job that it shouldn't be doing. So that's kind of the background behind it. So Manchester and Liverpool currently are not doing surgeries. They're not level 1 centres anymore. The nearest one is Newcastle, and Newcastle does transplants, Fontan conversions, and a number of different heart surgeries and liver surgeries and things like that. So the care of myself and other adult CHD patients, we're in the right hands basically. It's just unfortunate because of the lack of funding and staffing that we can't be closer to home, because my family lives Liverpool, Manchester area, and if I was to go in for a major surgery, I'd be in there probably a couple of weeks. The issue is that I would have no family around me because they're all 3+ hours away. So as well as the kind of physical issues that Northwest patients have, there's also that mental side of things that you don't necessarily have your support network around you, but that's kind of a side issue. So when we went up to see Dr. Johnson and the team up there, they were brilliant. Like, they couldn't have been more helpful. They were so lovely. Really felt like I would be really taken care of there, which put my mind at rest really, because obviously if you're not going to have your family around you, you want to know that you've got nursing staff and people who will come or you feel comfortable with. So that was kind of the first obstacle that was overcome, which was great. we stayed in a hotel that was like right in the centre of Newcastle. I've never been before, so that was brilliant to just kind of like see around. And my mum came with me, so it was lovely to spend some time with her. We did the pre-op clinic for my ablation in the morning, and then we saw Dr. Jansen and the EP specialist, which is electropulmonary, I think, not sure. But basically the rhythm specialist, so a consultant who specialises in your heart rhythms and making sure the hearts beat in the correct rhythm. So we saw them in the afternoon. They were really positive on how well I was. I think one of the issues that I'd been worried about is that with these consistent AFs that I've been getting and the palpitations, that it's sort of making me less and less healthy, and they were sort of quite surprised by how healthy that I was given how old my Fontan operation is, so that was really good to know. They also said, although it had been bandied about in December, the transplant list isn't an option at the moment, I'm just far too well for it, which was obviously, I was quite relieved by that. However, what they did say was that the ablation would be a kind of put on surgery. So for those of you that don't know what an ablation is, it's basically where they go in through your groin and go up to your heart with like wires and cables and make your heart go out of rhythm. So they put you into the palpitations, and then they cauterize where that beat goes so that it doesn't have anywhere to go, and it's supposed to stop the atrial fibrillation. So I've had one before that didn't really work, so we're hoping that this one will do the trick. But whilst I am under anaesthetic and whilst I'm down there, they're going to measure pressures in my heart to see how well my heart's working, and that's the last in a number of tests that I've been having over the last sort of 6 months. MRI scans, liver scans, the cardiac catheter to test the pressures, that will be the last one, and the CPET test, which I've already talked about. Once they're done, they'll decide whether they're going to do or want to do a Fontan conversion, which will take my old Fontan, my 30-year-old one, into a new version of the Fontan, and they'll do a bit more work to my heart to sort of stop any stretching that's happened. And at that point, they also said that they would possibly want to put a pacemaker in. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about all of that, but what they'll also do is do transplant tests. So they'll test my tissues and my antibodies, and what they'll do with that is basically every time you have a surgery and you're given a blood transfusion, your body creates more antibodies to fight infection. If you've got too many and you have another surgery, you'll obviously have another blood transfusion and then have even more. Having too many antibodies, you would think, is a good thing, having a lot of antibodies, but it's not for transplant. So having too many antibodies massively narrows down any kind of transplant window that I've got in terms of what type of heart I can take. That's my understanding of it anyway, and again, not a medical expert, just listening to medical experts. So if I've got too many antibodies, the conversion surgery is out. They won't be able to do it, because if they did it, they would risk me not accepting or not being able, my body rejecting a transplant heart. So the end game with any CHD apparently is a transplant, and if they could obviously take a heart off a shelf and transplant them, they would, but it doesn't work like that. So it's still a kind of wait and see game, but the short term plan is have the ablation, do the pressure tests, do the transplant tests, and then the potential middle game is have the conversion, which could give me another 10-20 years, in which case the transplant wouldn't really be relevant, because I wouldn't accept a transplant at 70 years of age, so we'll just have to see. But the other issue is the liver. So I drink, I've always drunk, I don't make a secret of it, but CHD patients and Fontan patients in particular are more likely to get liver issues, so it's important to kind of look after it a bit more. People who know will probably laugh at that, but I have massively cut down my drinking in the last 2 years, and I'll continue to do it. But on the whole, my liver's very healthy. I eat a very healthy diet, and up until the last year or so I exercise well. I naturally like foods that are good for me and do detoxes and things like that, so I'm not really worried about my liver. I just have to kind of maintain how it is. So that's kind of where we're up to. I'm not entirely sure how things are going to pan out in the next couple of months. The ablation is going to be the first, and then there'll be the definite yes or no on any kind of further conversion surgery. Ultimately, it's my choice, and I won't be pushed into having something that I don't feel I want to have, but also, I'm confident that the doctors aren't going to try and make me have something that isn't going to significantly improve my health and my life. So hopefully this ablation will work, and it'll work well, and I can kind of push the surgery back and wait and see. I don't really want to have both. I don't really want to have, as it stands now, an open heart surgery for the conversion, and then like in 2 or 3 years have a transplant. I'm still not sure how I feel about the whole transplant situation. Ultimately, it's just going to be a case of crossing that bridge when I come to it. I don't think people have asked me how I feel and if I'm worried or scared, and I'm not. It's not something that I think about, and it probably sounds silly to say that, but ultimately there's no point me sitting here and stressing about something that may or may not happen. I'll decide whether I'm going to be stressed or upset or angry about it when I know that I definitely have to have it, or when it's happening. That's kind of how I deal with stuff. If it's not happening right now, I'm not going to worry about it, which I think is probably quite a good attitude to have. It might be a stupid attitude. People might think I'm dumb and I need to think about the consequences and think about what's going to happen, but I that's not me. Never has been me, and never will be me. I'll cross the bridge when I come to it and decide. I think one of the things that I've decided, regardless of what happens over the next 6-12 months, is that I'm going to start to get fitter and healthier again. I've been given the green light to exercise, so that's going to become an important part of my life. Probably start to look after my liver a bit more. I'm going to take more opportunities to spend time with family and friends, and and sort of travel, do stuff that I haven't done before, which I think is probably just quite a good way to live life anyway, really. Also, it makes me more determined with the app to get that done and dusted when I'm in a position where I can be here, there and everywhere, should I need to be. And I'm feeling well and energetic, which I do. I think it's important that I make the most of it, because I could be a lot iller. There's people who are a lot iller than me who, you know, are having imminent surgeries, and you know, I'm incredibly lucky to be in the position that I'm in, given that, you know, my heart surgery, my last surgery was like 30 years ago. So I think ultimately I'm more settled now that I know that there's a plan, and I'm more determined to be healthier and get healthier so that, you know, I can push the surgery for as long as possible, really. So that's my kind of thoughts. I think my initial thoughts were about kind of remembering being in pain as a child when I'd had my heart surgery, because they go through your breastbone, and not to be too gross, but obviously you've then got a broken bone that's like right down the middle of your chest plus a scar. So I think I was worrying about stuff like that, but now I'm just like, it's fine, it'll be fine. So that's Newcastle in a 16-minute nutshell. So I, as ever, apologise for waffling on. If you have made it to the end of the video, well done. I did it in the window again, so it's got a bit of a nice background, hopefully. And if anybody's got any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me. I'd be really interested to hear from other patients who have had open heart surgeries around the late 30s, and you know, just have you got any tips, and people who've maybe like avoided a surgery by doing a certain thing. I don't think you can with CHD, but we could try. And obviously just thank you for watching.